So, what is that number one mistake that leaders make again and again when they communicate about change? I've worked for 23 years for corporate organizations as a corporate communications leader, and I really know what I'm talking about. And I've also seen the same mistake happening again and again at my clients' companies where I'm working now for about 5 years as a coach or consultant. So, what we do when we usually speak about change, you can imagine it like an analogy. So, I have drawn here something for you. Imagine this is the change project, the transformation that you want to convey, the message that you want to bring to people. And you are here, you as a leader, you as a CEO, you as a C level executive, you as a middle management leader as well. So, no matter your position, you want to communicate that change to other people. Now, let's say you're here, the change is there. What is the very first thing that you usually do? You, first of all, create your own connection to the change, right? You find out what is compelling for you, what's in it for you. Why are you really embracing this project? Maybe this is already a bit tricky sometimes, but let's assume that you, as a leader, you're convinced about it, you understood, and are enrolled in the why we need that change. That means in your mind, you have created a rationale for how to get there, why to get there. And in your mind, if you compare it like Google Maps, for example, you have here your point of final destination, which is the change. You have your point of departure, and it's calculating the smoothest way to get there. That's what's happening when you, as a leader, you as an individual, embrace the change. Now, what we tend to do, what leaders tend to do, is that then we start from this point of departure in our mind, and we believe that this point of departure and the smooth way to get there means the reasons why this change is compelling is compelling to everybody else as well. And we start communicating out of that perspective to our teams. Now, what is the problem with that? Well, the problem is that as soon as you communicate just from this perspective, you customize your message to the single person on this planet who will never get it, and that is you. So other people will not be enrolled in your message. They will not come with you along the ride, except if they are very similar profile wise than you are. People in your team have another point of departure. In their mind, their personality style, their beliefs, their situation as well, their culture potentially is different from yours. And that means that they are seeing or looking at the change here from another perspective. And if you expect them to join you up here, they have to do a very painful exercise. So as long as you try to bring people on board from your perspective, sooner or later, as you are the leader, they will try to follow you, right? They will try to join you on your journey. But to get there, to get where you are, to understand what is the rationale behind it, why is this compelling, they have to go on a very painful path here. And it takes time. And this is exactly what we realize or what we feel when we feel resistance in our teams. This is what they're doing because people try to get on board with you, but it's very difficult for them because you just communicated out of your perspective, which is not their perspective because they have a different point of departure. Now, what would be an ideal situation? The ideal situation would simply be that you help them to understand their point of departure, where they are, and to bring them to the goal in a smooth way, but in their own way, not in your way. Now, what do I actually mean by that? That sounds now pretty, let's say, conceptual, right? So, what I mean by that is that people have very different motivations. Their intrinsic motivation is not the same as yours. Let's assume you are someone who is pretty much of a doer, you're task oriented, result oriented. You find the argument that there's a growth perspective behind that and that we can achieve an exceptional performance sounds good to you. You're attracted by these words. However, what is super important to understand is that about 70% of the population globally is not receptive to these words. For 70% of the world's population, words like growth opportunity, performance, achievement, bottom line result are words that are threatening them. They feel fear deep inside of them because all they want is stability and security. It's very important to keep that in mind. And what we usually do in organizations is that we try to mobilize security or safety oriented people towards being more agile, being more flexible. And we reinforce that message of being agile, of growing, of achievement, of performance. And that is threatening them even more. And you push them away even more and you create even more resistance. What is also important to understand is that profiles that performance driven people, task oriented people think are slow profiles, profiles that show resistance, are actually the profiles that will make your change happen at the end. Because once they are on board, they will come with you and they are super reliable. They're very detail oriented. They're very analytical. And you can really be sure that they will carry out any task you give them until the very end once they are on board. Now, the important thing is to get them on board. And for this, it's very, very important, if not crucial, that you use their strengths instead of trying to convince them about becoming more agile, more flexible, loving change. From their heart, from the bottom of their heart, they will never be able to do so because that's not their personality style. Instead, embrace that personality style. Look at it as a true strength because that's what it is. These people are super valuable when it comes to bringing change projects to an end because also things need to be implemented at some point. And this is where they come in with their full strengths. So you need to bring them on board for a change in a different way. Speak more about continuity, business continuity, about midterm security for their jobs, for example, or for the structure of the team. Ask them their valuable advice, how we can plan this change in a different way so that people can really understand it and that we have maybe less glitches throughout the process. This is where they have their strengths. Leverage the strengths, bring them on board with the profile they have and not forcing them into being someone else. And then you will see that you will have much less resistance in your teams. And then finally, your teams come on board with you. And not only because they then understand the change better, but because they understand what they can make as a contribution is really valuable for the whole team. And this is how a change works when it comes to bringing people on board for the change. So if you want to learn more about that, you can get in touch with me and have a 30 minutes discussion about the specific situation in your team or your organization. And I can help you with tailor making it in a way that people come on board for the ride. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you soon.